Hope Channel, changing lives.
Hello and welcome to the Law Chambers on Hope Channel. I'm Setlina Baba Hammond, sitting in for your regular host, Anita Delight Dankwa. International Women's Day, 8th March, is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating women's equality. Today, International Women's Day belongs to all groups collectively everywhere. To help us understand why the day and more is Lois Eduamwa Ado and Thelma Achre-Hayford. Lois Eduamwa Ado is a young, passionate women's land rights advocate. She has been working with women in law and development in Africa, WorldAf Ghana, for the past 10 years as a program officer. She is currently one of the mentors of the International Land Coalition's #Women for Women program. And Thelma Achre-Hayford is a gender advisor, Oxfam Ghana, and project manager for the Ghana EU Enough projects. Ladies, you are both welcome to the Law Chambers on Hope Channel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Lois, tell us something about WorldAf Ghana.
Okay, so WorldAf is Women in Law and Development in Africa. It is a women's rights organization that was formed over 30 years ago in 1992 by reputable women in Ghana who attended a UN conference, and one of the outcomes of that conference was, let's have a network of women. And so the various countries where these women who attended the conference, when they return back to the country, they decided that we haven't had so much visibility on issues about women. How do we contribute to, deepening issues on women's rights in our country? It is to form a network of women lawyers and development experts, and that was, the brain behind the start of WorldAf Ghana, the formation of WorldAf Ghana. So WorldAf is an organization that works using law and development as a strategy, and we work from the rights-based approach.
I see. And what about the #Women for Women project?
Oh, that is a campaign. It's a campaign we did at the regional level on women's land rights. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Thelma, I'm on you now. Tell us something about Oxfam and the AU projects in Ghana.
Okay, so Oxfam Ghana is one of the organizations under the global Oxfam International umbrella. It was started in the UK, in the Great Britain, with Oxford as the hub of, where we started our campaign. So what we do is to influence government policies and advocacy centered on human rights related issues. Our core mandates are in the area of, raising a very accountable population. And so we have the accountable governance pillar. We have the gender justice and social inclusion pillar. And then we have the just economy, which looks at the extractive industry and how we can mainstream it for all the returns from our natural resources to be beneficial to all citizens in the country. So our mandate is to basically serve as a vehicle to bring about change through influencing of the key policies and laws that are made in Ghana. And the EU Enough project is a 4-year project sponsored by the European Union and Oxfam Ghana, and it's running in 3 countries, Ghana, Mali, and Liberia, where we discuss issues related to sexual and gender-based violence, raising male champions and allies, and then also influencing and strengthening government agencies and women's rights organizations to bring about change on issues of sexual and gender-based violence.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go on a short break. Stay tuned.
You are doing well.
So far, so good.
Okay, let's keep the conversation.
So good.
I'll try and ask one follow-up question in every level.
All right. Okay. Welcome back. Lois, I'm on you.
Yeah.
Honestly, today I'm here to educate myself. I know nothing about this day, so I'm here to educate myself. So I need you to tell me something. What's this celebration all about? International Women's Day. What is it all about?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to educate Ghanaians about this day. The International Women's Day is a very unique day. It is a global day that was established by the United Nations in 1975.
Wow.
And it is to recognize the role women play in our communities and in our countries, looking at issues from the social, political, economic, and every area of life where we've seen women play monumental and unique roles. You know, it came up because we realized that, you know, in 1945, when the United Nations was established, it was established based on the principle of human rights.
Okay.
And human rights is where everybody who is born as a human being has some freedoms to, to enjoy life. So once you are named a human being, and this includes issues like right to life, to be free from torture, access to education, health, so that is the hope and underpinning of human right, that everybody should have some level of dignity, some opportunities to access resources. But in 1975, we realized that despite human beings enjoying human rights, it seems it had been just underpinned with issues about men. Men are enjoying their human rights, and when it gets to women in accessing their rights, it becomes a whole conversation as to whether she deserves those rights. Meanwhile, human right is not discriminatory. It's about anyone once you are recognized as a human being. So then, when United Nations came up with a protocol, Convention on the Elimination of All Discriminations Against Women, the CEDAW, and then how, you know, it's not just about passing laws, but you also have to put together a framework that will help implement this. And so one of the conversations was, we have realized women were advocating on some of these rights that were due them in different parts of the world. And so it was like, every 8th of March in 1908, women in New York, 15,000, took to the streets advocating for better pay systems and conditions at work. So it became like, on that day, women took to the streets in New York. And so let's use that day to, and I mean, beyond then, there have been other uprisings by women in all over the world, and even in Ghana. We had Yasantua in 1900, lead men to war. Okay, so let's use that day to commemorate the role women play, and also remind our policymakers about their commitments to women. So on this day, it's about celebrating women achievers, women achievements, and to remind policymakers their commitment in advancing issues about women's rights.
Thank you. Honestly, tell me, in all honesty, we've been celebrating this day. Do you really see results? Are we achieving something as women?
I would say that yes, but it's a bit very slow.
Very slow. Yeah.
Imagine Ghana without International Women's Day or all the women's rights advocacies. We've had a lot to celebrate, but it doesn't mean we've made it all. We still have lots of things that have been untended, have not been attended to. And we think that we still need to give relevance to this day and remind our policymakers that we still haven't met all the demands that we placed before them.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm coming to you, Thelma. What are you going to add to this International Day from your area? Exactly what are you also doing to help women achieve our aim and targets?
Okay, so coming from a place of a young woman who is looking forward to a society that is very equitable and fair to women.
As a gender advisor.
Yes. I'm straddling between the Ghana that I want for women, you know, who have gone ahead of me, and then the young women that are coming after me. And I look at all the progress that has been made by people like Lois and other women's rights organizations in Ghana, and I celebrate those wins. However, the dynamics of our society is changing, and we have to keep with the times and the discourse on gender-related issues. So even as we are already trying to get over the challenges that we have already faced in many, many areas, the lack of representation or the minimum representation that we have in decision-making roles, the sexual and gender-based violence issues, the health issues, maternal issues, employment issues that we face because of our role of our gender. And then I look at the emergent issues that are also coming up that are targeting women in light of the technology and the advancements that we are trying to catch up with the rest of the world. And then I come to a place where I'm thinking to myself, we really do need to catch up. So we add our voices to the campaigns that are already going on, and we raise awareness on the other ones that we foresee coming. So for instance, we are using technology a lot. We have gone digital, but then there are issues, or there are things that are bent on harming women that we have to incorporate in our conversation now and deal with them now before it becomes an issue that we cannot deal with, like a hydra monster. So it's like, indeed it's like a hydra monster. You cut off one head, seven come up in its place. So the conversation cannot be limited to just International Women's Day. The advocacy and calling out government and duty bearers, we continue doing it every way, however we can, in every program, every project, and every policy that we try to influence.
All right. So yesterday was the day. Yesterday was our day, and I didn't hear any message from our First Lady. I didn't hear our president saying anything about it. Are you sure these guys are really serious about us?
You see, that's why when you ask that question about are we making, is it really necessary? Are we making progress? I will always say that, yes, that's why we need to remind them. Like, I'm very happy you have brought this up, because yesterday was a very monumental day that the president was talking about state of the nation. And so if it coincides with International Women's Day, I thought he would have even brought out some key issues for women, which would have even set the discussion for him to even congratulate women in his government, those who've been out. I mean, even yesterday, if you have no promise to a woman, what about those who have supported your government to this extent? So I think that we can't keep quiet. We've not made it yet, and we can't forget about what we've been doing in the past. I even forgot to share about, sometimes when we talk about these histories, we forget who even started this whole discussion in Ghana. So I'll use this opportunity to educate Ghanaians about how some of our presidents have been very gender sensitive. And it goes to, I mean, our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He's a man that really showed so much leadership in every area. You know, when we began Ghana gained independence, and we were putting structures in place to, I mean, ensure that everybody plays a role. The first parliament in 1960 didn't have any woman. And he said, no, and then even issues on women, you know, when I even started, I started with 1975 from the UN. So in 1960, that conversation about women hadn't even started in Ghana. And he said, no, in the fight for independence, it wasn't only about men. It was also about women being part. And we can't come sit here and forget the role women played. So he used his executive powers to bring on board 10 women to be part of parliament in the first parliament. And that was the first affirmative action that our president took. So because of this act, it gave women that opportunity to know that they deserve to be in that space, okay? And so the next parliament in 1964 or 65, they had 9 more women joining the 10 women. We had 19 women. And this was, I mean, in 1960, I mean, when the issues on women even speaking for themselves, hadn't even become common in our society. And I would say that was leadership. And the next unique role too was by our president and the Rollins, what's the name? J.J. Rollins, his
era.
wife. Yeah, in 1988, when Ghana started talking about decentralization and forming the district assemblies,
Beijing, all those things.
then even Beijing hadn't come. Then she also did Nana Kunedu Ajima Rollins used her, I mean, that unique role as a first lady to start engaging women at the grassroots levels. You know, she started with these daycare centers. Then the next thing was, how do women become part of this decentralization? Because it's not, Ghana is not about men. So that's where this 31st December Women's Movement began, educating women.
Were all over the place.
And they were all over the place.
Very visible.
Yes, and this was leadership. A president in 1960 and a first lady in 1988. And this history on a day like this is commendable to mention that we have leaders who have, and you know, committing to issues about women. We don't need loans from China. We don't need loans from IMF to just decide that this too, women need to be part of it. I mean, to get women participation in decision making, ensure that women's issues are mainstreamed into ongoing programs and projects. We don't need a loan. We only need leadership. So I want to also talk about the history, and then I want to talk about our president, J.A. Kufuor, and when he was voted into office. In his commemoration speech, the speech when he was being sworn, investiture was being handed out, he said, "My government will have a ministry for women and children affairs," and this was in the year 2000. So I would say that it's about leadership. If we want to see women make it, we want to see the lives of women advanced, it's about leadership.
Thank you, Thelma. I'm struggling here, but let me ask this. Do you think we as women, we really understand this whole thing, this international, the celebration, and how important it is to us? Because I get that, and I may be wrong, but I think we don't really know our worth. We don't really understand what the conversation is all about. I may be wrong. From where you sit, what can you say about this?
Okay, so the essence of the International Women's Day celebration is gradually becoming a part of women in Ghana and the world at large. I can say for yesterday, the participation by women in every sphere was very, very visible, practically online, and even how the Ministry of Gender took the center stage and then championed the celebration of the day. I would add on to what Lois said and add that the State of Nations address coincided with the day, and I actually was very hopeful that the President would mention that, okay, this is the day I am going to
At
ascend.
least the First Lady will say something, you know.
This is the day I'm going to
for this day, only like the President saying, for International Women's Day coinciding.
I'm going to pass the affirmative action bill into...
I'm making my commitment to my own commitment.
Yes, yes.
I think the speaker came to our rescue. He said this for us, so let's hope
came
that.
through for us. We thank him for that. Yes, but then again, the fact that we as women need to actually take on the day and own it and actually amplify our voices and make our ask to government very, very strong. We are the majority. So once we decide to use the power and topple certain things that have been going on and we've accepted as the norm, some change will come. We are gradually getting there, but I must say the participation in the celebration of the International Women's Day has improved from where I sit. And most organizations and women's rights organizations have said that they are going to extend the celebration of International Women's Day to at least a week long to make sure that we've exhausted the conversations on all things pertaining to gender issues in Ghana.
Well, I would like to say it's not just about extending the days, but the education.
Exactly.
We need to go to the grassroots. Because I saw it online. People were posting, sharing, but then the grassroots, the ordinary Ghanaian woman, does she really understand what this whole thing is about? So it's not just about extending the day, but let's let the education go down well.
And how? What do we use as the basis or the vehicle to channel the education? We use social media, and then we also practicalize how relevant or how beneficial it will be for you as a woman if you add your voice to the campaign. So for instance, you can decide to sit on the fence and not, join the campaign. However, the budget that is, used to, govern the finances of the country is not gender sensitive. It's not as gender sensitive as I would want. And so the implications of that thereof, you and I will feel it. We are being tasked for our, menstrual hygiene and, other areas that we see that the monies or the funds being allotted to women-related issues are dwindling over the years. The percentages are dropping. So if we include women at the table where such decisions, where critical decisions that affect you and I, we are absent from those tables where those conversations are being held. We will feel it. So when we bring everyone to that consciousness, that's when the drive would increase and the momentum that we seek to gain with this conversation about the International Women's Day and all things pertaining to gender will be more successful.
I want to add something to what it means to women and whether women are...
And then you tie in with the activities.
Okay, so I'll say that our socialization have not made women so ambitious, and then also even know that the certain rights is deserving them. So it's really a whole process for women to be able to really appreciate some of these rights that we come discussing up.
And I think it's not just about society. I think religion also. Religion has also really put us down.
So like, let me say you are done with university. Let me say you go to the universities and you meet young girls and you want to know their ambitions and aspirations, and you may not hear them really thinking about forming an organization or thinking about owning property in the near future, or thinking about taking a leadership role in their communities. It is immediately about getting some money and then starting. I'm not saying starting a family is not a priority, but I mean, being part of the whole development information. So sometimes you go and they say the women are not there or they are not interested. So it's really a process, but it will also, with our education, how our education is shaped, will influence young girls, challenging their mindsets, So it's true. Yesterday, for instance, we're talking about technology or embrace equity. I mean, these two teams were running side by side. And issues on technology are how women are embracing the whole technological change. I mean, if you are even a seamstress, how are you using social media to promote your work? I mean, how are you using, all the new tools. So, and you check, men are using it very well compared to females.
All right. So, Thelma, a little history about human rights in Ghana. So, all right. So then, let me, because I need you to come in.
Okay.
And so, so let's talk about the gender campaign.
Okay.
That's your area, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, Thelma, can you educate us on gender equality campaign here in Ghana?
Okay, so I can speak to the one that I'm currently on the most. So we realized from the study that the sexual and gender-based violence issues in Ghana would require an all-hands-on-deck approach to resolve. So the EU Enough project looked at ways to incorporate men in the conversation to address sexual and gender-based violence. And also traditional leaders, like you mentioned, because some of these issues are stemmed in our social norms and some of the gender roles that we are given from birth, and they, as the custodians of the traditions and the norms that we grew up with, are the best people to guide their areas of influence or their communities or locales out of those mindsets, those age-old mindsets that have done us a lot of disservice over the years. We're talking about things like widowhood rights, witch camps, trokoshi systems, and the acceptance of men beating their wives. We also decided that religious leaders also have a role to play in addressing that issue. And this is a human rights issue. It's not necessarily a women's right, or you know, we are fighting for women, we are raising radical feminists when we mention the word gender. No, men also get abused, but then it is women that are, you know, reported. Yes, incidents are reported more, and the consequences thereof of, you know, abuse on them is much more, you feel it more, the impact is much more, you know, dire. So we bring in the religious leaders. We also engage women's rights organizations, strengthening their capacity so that they can, you know, carry out their advocacy the right way and use the best means to get to see through the change that we seek. And we work with partners all over the southern part of Ghana and the northern part of Ghana to bring about this change. And also we as part of the project, Lois and the WILDAF team did a revision of the DV Act that was put in place in 2007, Act 732.
Yeah, yes, 732.
Yes. Some loopholes that were in the act that was not allowing for women to access the full redress that is due them when they experience domestic violence or any form of abuse. The study was able to identify those loopholes. For instance, when you are abused as a survivor, you're supposed to, under the law, enjoy free medical treatment. But as it stands now, you, the survivor, have to bear the brunt of this horrible, intrusive act that has been done to your body, and you have to pay for the medical fees as well. The government has populated the DV fund, yes, but we are asking for more. We are Oliver Twist. We are asking for more. So we made some recommendations to strengthen the laws around some of these things. So that's what I can speak to about the...
All right, so from where you sit, and you brought in opinion leaders, religious leaders, are we seeing results? Are we really seeing results in terms of, you know, freedom or...
For women's rights. I would say that in Ghana we've made lots of progress
so far
in terms of policies, okay? So let me say, we were asking the history of some of the, I shared some background on how some our presidents have been have exhibited leadership skills. And I would say that some of the actions that were taken, like I mentioned that affirmative action in 2019. So in the early 2000s, when the discussion on, I mean, after the 1995 Girl Child campaign began, when we went...
Send your girl child to school.
Yeah, yeah, that was the beginning of serious... I mean, after the 98, where on the decentralization, then the next major issue in Ghana was the girl child education. So how do we get girls' child to school? It wasn't only about nurseries, it was at all levels. So we needed to find strategic ways and unique ways to get more girls into schools. And one of the interesting initiatives that were taken by the Ministry of Education was the affirmative action policy, where if a girl gets, like, the cutoff point was 10 to the university, girls with 12, 13, maybe sometimes to 14, were also given the opportunity to be in that class, looking at the kind of barriers that society places on the life of a girl in action in relation to her studies and education. Like, girls do so much work in their home, sometimes they don't get enough time to study. If they had all that luxury like boys do, they will be performing equally like them. So these were something, initiatives that were taken that, I mean, speared the ladies. I mean, now most of us got educated. I was a beneficiary of the affirmative action policy in the year 2000.
Wow.
When I went to the university. You know, sometimes we forget to, I mean, you see me here today, and I wasn't a bad student in the university, but I benefited from the affirmative action policy. Yeah. So I would say that we've made gains. Beyond that, we started with the campaign for the Domestic Violence Act, where we, in 2007, you know, the discussion, when it started, it's like, so when a woman and a man have an issue at home, should they go to the police? I mean, the men, I mean, there was so much issue on whether it should be passed or not, and its implication on our family unit. And in 2007, we were able to get Parliament to pass the Domestic Violence Act. And I mean, it has brought some kind of sanity.
Yeah.
And now imagine Ghana without the Domestic Violence Act. So in terms of policy, I also talk about in the year 2016, we also had a law, Ghana AIDS Commission Act, that was also looking at the issue on the family system and HIV/AIDS, where when persons were living with HIV, especially females who share because of their status, sometimes they are made to endure so much emotional abuse because it's like there's this threat. I will tell everybody you have HIV. I mean, it has also brought some sanity. And in the year 2000, we had the Land Act.
The Land Act.
Yeah.
Almighty one.
And the Land Act also brought some interesting provisions on spousal rights with respect to landed property, where some time ago we could hear women have to always go provide evidence on your contribution at home during divorce. You know, but this makes it that once you can prove that the two of you were to living together and contributed towards that, you don't need to show that evidence anymore.
Oh, so now I don't need to go look for receipts?
No,
anything.
Once you can prove that you were a supportive wife to your husband and within that period you made this property together and you were married legally, you have the right to your a share in the property you owned. So, and all these have been advocacies that women advocate, and I mean this whole discussion on human rights and women's rights have, I mean, brought, okay, in the years we did have this. We've also had institutions and statement having gender decks and then policies and programs in those institutions. So I would say, as a country, we've not done that bad. The problem has been the implementation. That is it.
That is the implementation. And as you rightly said, it's leadership.
Yes.
When you get the right leader, obviously we can go far. So what are some of the success stories in areas of, say, education, health, women in agriculture? Do we have any stories to at least, you know, encourage ourselves?
I mean, Lois is a very good visual success story of
an affirmative action, you know. When I joined the women's movement,
that's under education.
In education in 2009, they were asking for success stories for any of these women. I mean, and I said, I mean, now people don't say it, but many of the females that entered the university in the year 1999 to 2002, many benefited from the affirmative. Today, the University of Ghana then had one hall that was a voter, but because of issues on women's rights, we have women mainstreamed apart from voter and then Commonwealth. All the halls are both genders, and these are all successes that we have made with respect to this whole conversation about women. So I mean, there is a lot we can celebrate today. I mean, many girls can easily aspire. You know, many years ago I mentioned when you are being done with the university, I'm not even thinking about any leadership role or taking up any challenging role in our society. But you can hear now we have this school day, what's the name, the profession day, and you see young girls aspiring to be pilots, and I mean identifying roles and professions that initially were dominated, male-dominated professions, and you see ladies or young children because
all dressed up,
and we can't play down the 2020 elections where we could have one of the major political parties feature a woman as a running mate.
All right, so you hold that thought. We'll go on a short break. Stay tuned.
Hope Channel Day is Saturday, 11th March. We bring you real angels, real people, and real stories. Live at 7 p.m. on Saturday, 11th March. Only on Hope Channel Ghana. You do not want to miss it.
Pastors, elders, church members, I bring you special greetings from our Lord Jesus Christ and from Hope Television. Your support over the years has helped propel this station forward. On the 11th of March, the union have set it aside for us to raise funds to support our own television station. I want to appeal to you, pastors, elders, church members, let us all get involved. And on the 11th of March, in all churches throughout Ghana, let us give a donation to support this TV station so that God's work that we are doing here will go far and more souls will be won into the kingdom to enable Jesus to come again. The date is 11th March. All SDA churches in Ghana, please do well to support and let us get the work done to enable Jesus to come again. I know you're going to support it. God richly bless you. We look forward to hearing from you on the 11th of March.
Welcome back. So Thelma, tell us, what are some of the challenges, we are facing in this whole education thing?
The whole education on women?
Yes.
Okay. So, like Lois mentioned, the political willpower is a very, very important hurdle to cross if we are to make the strides that we want to make. I am very excited that the president himself has committed to being a gender champion. So I can hold him to his words at any point in time that said, this is what you committed to. 40% of your cabinet or your appointments will be women. I don't see that reflecting on the ground. I want to see that. I want to see in my lifetime that the affirmative action
Can you look
bill,
into the cameras and let him know?
Yes, I can. I want to see in my lifetime that the affirmative action bill is passed, and you promised, you assured us that this is something that you would commit to in your tenure, and the Honorable Minister has made it her call that she would see to it being passed. The reason why it's very important that this bill is passed is that young girls need to see themselves in the women leaders that we promote in our society. We've had women bringing a different dimension and more growth in spaces where they are included. So for instance, women in mining, women in sports, we've seen great examples. Once you give the woman the room, she's able to do so much, especially the Ghanaian woman. So let us see more of women in those spaces impacting their society and contributing to nation building through the Affirmative Action Act bill being passed or assented into a law. I would also say some of the challenges we've had is the misconception that have trickled down into the fabric of our society. The thinking that women in leadership, we are too erratic, we are emotional, we don't do well we've not cut our teeth with very with leadership in at the local level and cannot translate it into higher offices. That is something that is very unfortunate, and I'd want to see that there is more room for women at the table where core decisions are made. At the local assembly level, we see more participation of women, but let's support that space for them as well. At the committee level, let's see more women at in local assembly committees so that they can learn the technical skills, build on it, rise through the ranks, and occupy higher offices. Yes.
I want to see husbands encouraging wives to go as far as they can go.
Exactly.
I want to see brothers encouraging sisters to fly as high as they can fly, you know, and let's, you know, do the best for us. So, Lois.
Yeah. I'm happy that you mentioned that. Yes, I remember.
Can you please look into your camera and, you know, continue the conversation with our president?
Okay.
And maybe he can tell us why we still don't have any gender minister.
Okay. So we have a gender minister now.
We do have now.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But you know, the commitment the president made when he was asking us to, put him into office was that he will want to have 40% of women in his government and also ensure the passage of the Affirmative Action bill into law. He says is it 3 months? He gave us some short timeline. And
it's been 6 years.
It's been 6 years. I will not want to. I will not want to believe that the president will be done with his 8-year term without having this promise fulfilled to Ghanaian women.
Yeah.
You know, I want to ask that if we want to. You know, I mentioned some monumental things and historic things that past presidents did, and today we still see them. From our first president, when even the issue of gender hadn't been put to him, he thought about women. So when we talk about our current president, Nana Akufo-Addo, what will we remember you for? I mean, you have 2 years to leave office. What will Ghanaian women remember you for? What is so unique about your governance that women in Ghana will always have you written in our story? That it was your tenure that you did this unique, we know he's done a number of things, like more women into the judicial sector and other things, but we want that unique thing that nobody had done. And so the affirmative action is still lying, it's still not, seen in actualization. 2 years, do something monumental and let us remember you.
He will. He will. He will. All right, so let's look at some recommendations that will help advance these efforts. Thelma, will you want to take that up?
Yes, yes. So we can start from our home.
Okay.
Yes, we can start from the allowing girls to express themselves, to build on their assertiveness and their leadership traits, God-given leadership traits, and teach them to aspire to be greater women, higher heights in everywhere that they find themselves, irrespective of their skill set or whatever challenges that they would face. That is where we start from. And also at home, let us see more male support for our mothers. We as children, we look at what the examples that our family sets for us, and then we chart our lives based on that. So once we get it right at that microcosm level, then we come to the society level where we are talking about religious leaders, traditional leaders coming on board to support, rallying behind the cause. We want to see churches adopting gender-friendly policies. During counseling, let the couple know that there's a place for them if they are having any gender-related issues. Have a gender desk in your organization, in your church, and hear out women's grievances. It will help you. It will empower the female members of your church, and you would see the best side of them if you create that avenue, that safe space for them. Let us support the Ministry of Gender to carry out its mandate. It's a very huge mandate, and I'm glad to see that we have a very passionate gender minister in place now. Madam Abudu, she is very passionate, and I'm very happy to see that we have someone in place championing the cause. Let us support her and the various secretariats and divisions of the Ministry of Gender to carry out their mandates. Women's rights organizations in Ghana abound, and they are targeting different areas of relevance to women issues. Let us support them however we can through donations, through capacity building, and bringing them onto the table so that policies that are made are taking full cognizance of all the paradigms to women-related issues. And then we come to, even the other ministries, because, for instance, Ministry of Education, the girl child education, what can we do to promote and protect that space for girls? What can we do to ensure that even the environment in which children go to school to learn is safe and gender sensitive? We say we want pregnant girls to go back to school. We've started working around that. What else can we do? What are some of the shortfalls of such a good initiative that we need to work on immediately to increase the number of girls who may have gotten pregnant and want to return to school? And then we scale it up in all the other areas. The Ministry of Sports, women are saying they are not experiencing that same form of support that men in sports experience. What are the shortfalls? What are we doing to support in that area? What can we do to bridge the gap? All the areas, the environment, yes, the implication of Galamsey on women. What can we use to address those issues everywhere we look? Because, like I said, women's rights is a human rights thing, yes. So if we start taking it one by one, we see that indeed there are gaps, and together, when we address it together, we'll have a very holistic society.
Well, Lois, we've heard it all. We need some key lessons. What are some of the key lessons for women and children?
Okay, so the lessons for women, I want to say that when it gets to women advocacy, even she shared something, and I like the different dimensions you took before I go to that. It's not only about government, but on all our institutions. I was happy she mentioned the church. So I'm happy we're on Hope TV, which is a religious television, and I want that we also ensure that whatever we are asking from, I mean, our big man, our pastors and leaders who are males watching me, we also look into the church. We were here in our country, and we heard about another church where a very prominent church member lose their life to domestic violence. Yes, and I don't know what churches have done since then. It's not just about educating, but it's about putting policies and systems in place. A policy that people sign on to say, I will not abuse my wife, not just lip service. And then also having, reporting mechanisms in place, so that if somebody even doesn't want to report, somebody can report and then, blow the whistle. Yeah, but lessons for women. I want to encourage women that, look, let's aspire and be ambitious, okay? Those days where our lives were all dependent on seeing men do all the things in our society, from taking leadership role to provision. When God was blessing human beings, he said, have dominion and then be fruitful. He didn't only speak to man, he said he spoke to Adam and Eve. So I want to encourage that whatever you set your mind to do and you work towards it, and then you pray about it, God does it. So I will encourage that women should not just be sitting on the fence, waiting for few advocates to be the ones to be their voices. Wherever we find ourselves, let's get to be educated, let's get to, dream, let us get to be ambitious, let's get to be aspiring, let's be our sister's keeper. You get to places, say women are their own enemies. It's not like that if we all become our sister's keeper. So let's change the rhetoric, let's change the narrative, and then let us all hands on desk. Next time, I shouldn't be about me talking about women's rights. It should be about you sitting watching me talking about women's rights.
Nice. All right, so we are about running up. Any last words, Thelma? Any advice?
Okay, so I would want to add that we've come to a very important point in the fight for gender equality and equity. This is like the very crucial point where if something doesn't happen, we will not be able to make much progress that we want. So I would challenge everyone, male, female, all hands on deck. Let's get on board. Let's see how we can use our influence to to bring about change in whatever space we find ourselves. If it is about transferring the skills you have as a woman to someone else, so that there's that continuity in the business or wherever you find yourself, do that. Help to bring up other women to the level where they can also rise up to the very highest versions of themselves. Let's demystify the notion that women are their own enemies, and work together, support each other, mentor each other, and rise together, and have that mindset that if we leave a very good legacy for our children, our girls and our boys, it evens out the challenges that we would face in society. We would have little to no challenges to face in society. And men, I'm calling you to come on board, because once we have a very fair and equitable society, your work is easier. The woman is contributing to the home and the society, and the burden on you, financial, emotional, psychological, is lessened. And you can actually lean into the strength of the woman to carry out the weight of the responsibilities in the country or at home, wherever it is, and you can actually lean into her strength. So let's tap into the potentials of women by supporting them, by pushing them, by urging them to aspire for higher heights.
Lois, your last words.
I want to, my last words is, I want to use this opportunity to, few words to our leaders that, we need that consciousness. It should be intentional. Our plans for women should be intentional, and we shouldn't just wait to jump on anything, but it should be intentional. And so, as we head towards this whole economic, as we go through this, you should know that it cannot be just one gender. Women, we should always make sure that in all our ways of meandering through addressing the issues on economy, politics, social, it's not only about men, it's about men and women. I also want to encourage our Christian leaders to ensure that the laws are there. Governments have done well with the laws. It's the implementation, and the implementation is about everybody. So we should just get to, learn, and then ensure that we're able to hand over very good systems in our institutions and in our organizations. And to all women, when we celebrate women, let's know that it's not about some women, it's about all women. Ask yourself, can you be counted? We need all hands on deck.
I've been educated, I've been informed, and to you, young girl, young lady, and woman out there, I say to you, don't be afraid to dream big. We have all it takes to be the best of ourselves. Until we come your way next time, this is the Law Chamber. Take care and bye.